Hello everyone and welcome to another Symphony of the Night Developer's Diary. In this video I'm going to debut the Subweapons system as well as introduce a few new enemies and also some new sound effects. In the past few weeks I spent a lot of time on the level design and also enemy AI, and of course an important factor in that are the sub-weapons, because if I just factor Alucard's normal attack then I'm not getting a full picture of how difficult or easy a certain area will be. So I've been putting it off for a long time, but now I've finally decided to put in the sub-weapons system and it seems to be working okay. As well as these sub-weapons, I've also now coded in an important part of the Alucard moveset, and that is the backdash. Because after all, having the backdash makes things a little bit easier, so I need to take that into account too when designing the levels and the enemy AI. It did take a few attempts to get the speed right, as you can see here, although this kind of super fast backdash might be useful for those who like to use it to get around the castle quickly. It still needs a few tweaks until it's exactly like the original, and I need to put this sound effect for it in too, but even for now it's pretty decent. I've also made a couple of changes regarding Alucard's basic attack. So the first is the sound effect that plays when you attack. So before, every time you attacked, you used the kind of the scream attack sound effect, that rah. But now I've changed it so that often it just does the regular sound effect of swinging the sword. I was inspired to make this change after playing through Bloodstained again, which, although I loved the game, one of the issues I had with it was the amount of noise that Miriam makes whenever she attacks, which gets a bit old after playing it for hours and hours. She's almost like, she makes more noise than some female tennis players even. Whenever you want to generate any kind of random numbers for the Mega Drive, it's normally best for the CPU if you do it in powers of 2, so you can do 1 in every 2 chance, or 1 in every 4, 1 in every 8, 1 in every 16 and so on. At the moment it's a 1 in every 4 chance that Alucard's going to do the screaming attack, but I think that's probably still a bit too much, so I think I'll reduce it to maybe 1 in every 8 in future, and that should be just about perfect. Another thing you may have noticed is the fact that I've removed the blue outline from the sword attack. Although the blue made it look really cool, it did have the effect of essentially making the range of the attack much greater than it otherwise would be. As I've been playing with new enemies and level designs, I've realised that this makes things a bit too easy for the player because the range of attack is just so big, so I decided instead to get rid of the blue and save that to be a special weapon that you can find, and have the regular weapon just so that it's just the basic sword without any of the blue fire around it. Another little change that I made, which you could have considered a bug before, was the fact that whenever the attack animation was triggered, that's when the attack was in effect in the code, so it could then hit the enemy. But if you look closely at the attack animation, you'll notice that for over half of it, the sword's not even out. It's this Alucard just taking the sword and putting it back. So it looks a bit weird when the enemy could be hit in those moments. So what I did is I changed it so in the code, the attack on the enemy is only in effect when he's, for those animation frames in which his sword is actually out. And after some experimentation, I realised that this was a bit too harsh on the player, so I ended up adding another frame either side to give the player an extra leeway, and that feels more fair to the player, even though it's giving them a slight advantage. Okay, with the regular attack out of the way, let's take a look at the sub-weapons now. So we have not a candle here, but a torch, so if I hit that, you hear the appropriate sound effect, and if the Medusa heads let me here, you can see I've picked up the axe and it's now appearing in the HUD at the top of the screen. But of course a sub-weapon is no use if you don't have any hearts, so let's go and find one now. And for the small heart, we've got the typical kind of floaty swaying motion, and you see as I've picked up now, the number in the HUD is changed to 1. So let's go and find some more. So if we pick one here, we can say it's a big heart, which falls down very quickly and it rotates, and now it's added 5 hearts. So now I've got 6, and if I throw an X, then we're back to 5 again. So it looks like it's all working okay with not many bugs that I can see right now anyway. And you can see there that the axe is effective against the enemies too, plus we have the axe swinging sound effect, which sounds quite nice on the Mega Drive. Now let's go down to the bottom of the screen where we'll find another sub-weapon as well as a new enemy too. Now this enemy, the Armor Lord, he's only half finished at the moment. He's only got 1 attack, and I'm just going to add some more attacks very soon, but you can still see him here, and here especially against this enemy, the backdash is very useful. In the PlayStation original, the first time you meet this guy, he's quite a tough enemy I think for being that early in the game, but when you meet him, the Medusa heads which are on the level, they kind of stop coming, and that makes it a bit easier. It's more of a case of having patience. So long as you're patient, you can defeat them. But I decided to make it so that the Medusa heads continue to spawn in this area, and I think it makes it a bit more difficult, gives it a bit more challenge, because I know a lot of people complain about the original Symphony of Night being a bit too easy, especially for the kind of people who are going to be playing this Mega Drive version. There tend to be people who've already played through the original many times before, so they're probably going to be quite good at the game. So I'm not going to make it super hard, but I want to make it maybe similar difficulty, maybe in between the Bloodlines and the Rondo of Blood difficulty. Okay, so I've got myself into a bit of trouble now, so let me just destroy this guy. So I'll keep hitting him. I think I've given him 10 hit points at the moment, and when you hit him just once, he's stunned and he doesn't react anymore. I think he gets a bit scared, so obviously that's a bit of AI that I need to add to, but it gets quite difficult when you have so many Medusa heads, plus it's ending at the same time, so I think it'd be a nice challenge for everyone. And here you can see that I've already programmed it into the game, so if you already have a certain sub-weapon and pick up another one, the other weapon will be kind of shoved to the side, so you don't necessarily have to choose the sub-weapon you just picked up. If you made a mistake, you can go back again. I think this was added in, was it Rondo of Blood, the first Castlevania game to do this? You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think it's definitely a nice feature to have, so I want to make sure that I added that little function in here too. So now we have the holy water, but we don't have any hearts, so let's go in search of more hearts, and we're also going to meet a new enemy. Now this enemy, the AI is pretty much done now. There's a few little things I need to sort out. I need to add some sound effects to the shooting, but I quite like this guy. You can see here that Alucard can get hit by him as normal, but you can also jump and avoid him too. If you've been paying attention to the HUD, you may have noticed that I've been losing life, that red bar, every time I get hit. I'm about to die here now too, because I've got myself into a pretty precarious situation with the Medusa heads and the musket man. After restarting and picking up the axe and some hearts, you can see I'm back in business again, and you can avoid the shooting by just jumping, and if I send the axe here, I can kill more than one enemy at the same time. Again, as with the Armor Lord, the presence of the Medusa heads makes this more difficult than it would otherwise be, so I hope it's just challenging rather than annoying, but everyone will get to play this at Christmas, so you can tell me then. The way these sub-weapons are falling to the ground here offers a bit of an insight into how I've coded them into the game. Rather than using the level collision code that I use for Alucard to see whether they've hit the ground or not and to stop them from falling, I've actually hard-coded the coordinates of the floor into the game for each of the sub-weapons. So I've done that because the collision code uses some multiplication calculations, and you really want to keep those as few as possible on a 16-bit system like the Mega Drive. In that particular instance, however, I did enter the coordinates incorrectly, so the sub-weapons appeared kind of 8 pixels above where they should have been. Okay, so we have the knife now. I think this is one of the favourite Castlevania weapons. And unlike the axe, when you shoot someone with the knife will disappear if it hits, whereas the axe continues to go through them. Now, this part of the level design, again, I don't know if this is going to be just a nice challenge or quite annoying, but we have the 2 Medusa heads, we have the little gap, plus we have the musketmen shooting at you from a distance. So hopefully that is fun and challenging rather than annoying. But again, you'll get to play this at Christmas, so you can tell me then. I just picked up a 1-up bonus there. Of course, after being a action platformer rather than a traditional Metroidvania, it will have lives. I'm going to do infinite continues because I think having limited continues is a bit irritating. I'm definitely going to go for the unlimited continues option, but we're going to have a certain amount of lives per level, so if you run out of lives in a level, you have to restart that level again. Speaking of the general level design of this section, the outer wall is going to be one of those levels that have a split path, so you can either go the upper path or the bottom path. If you want to go the upper path, this area here will have a door that you can walk through in the final edition, but up here in the corner will be the mechanism for the elevator for the lift. So if you can hit the switch there, then it will open up the elevator at the bottom, so you can then go to the bottom path. So you have a choice of the two. I'm going to make it so that the mechanism is a bit too high to reach with Alucard's normal jump, so you'd have to have found the double jump somewhere by then, or you can actually use the axe maybe to hit the mechanism, but the axe is something you probably have to have kept from a previous level, so that adds a bit of extra challenge there. And of course, just like Rondo of Blood, it's going to have split paths, and this will be one of the levels that has that. If you do decide to take the more difficult lower path, you're going to have to face this big guy, of course, which is going to be quite difficult once I've got his AI working properly, especially with the Medusa heads constantly spawning. I'm going to take care of him, then I'm going to demonstrate the holy water, because I don't think we got a chance to see it properly before, so you can see how it works. Now, how long it lasts for and everything, the animation is subject to change, but you can see it's working fine here. It lasts, it gets hits, you can potentially hit an enemy multiple times, so it'll be especially good against this armor lord, I think, once it's working, but at the moment he's impervious to any kind of sub-weapons. Regarding the sound effects in the game, these are mostly from stuff that I've gotten by playing the PlayStation version in DuckStation, then just silencing the CD soundtrack and then just recording the sound effects from Audacity. Then of course I have to do some work to get them into a format that the Mega Drive can use, and I think they sound pretty decent. Even the voices are sounding okay, so I'm quite happy with how most of them turned out. Using the XGM driver, sound driver, which comes with SGDK, you can use the 4 channels of PCM sound effects. So the first channel is reserved for the music, and so you have 3 left, and so you can play 3 of those sound effects at the same time. Now when you write in the code, you have to say which channel each sound effect is going to use, and that's going to take some practice because I have to make sure that the sounds can play at the same time. So for example, Alucard's attack sound and the sound of the enemies being damaged or the candles being destroyed, they're gonna have to be on separate channels because those 2 sounds often happen at the same time. And then of course we have an extra channel that I have to work out which sound effects go with which channel to give the best experience. Some sound effects have been quite difficult to rip, and thankfully I've been getting help from a YouTuber by the name of Cinemax. He spends a considerable amount of time and effort really getting behind the code to see what's going on with the sound effects in the original PlayStation game. It's a really fascinating video, and I will provide a link for everyone to watch. One of the things he discovered was the sound effect which happens when you defeat a boss actually plays more slowly than it should on the PlayStation. So on the PlayStation it sounds like this, whereas it should sound like this. I will guess that maybe it's the special lighting effects that take place after the boss is defeated, the kind of swirling pattern that's causing the slowdown on the PlayStation. So on the Mega Drive version I'll probably just have the sped up version, but it doesn't quite sound right after being used to listening to the slowed down version for so many years. Okay, so that's about it for this video. As always, thanks very much for watching, and if you're interested in this type of content, don't forget to subscribe.
I'm interested in this.
And for those of you who wish to support the channel, I have a Patreon and any support is much appreciated.
You won't go unrewarded.
Until next time,
farewell.